"Miss, are you sure you're in the right building?" The receptionist didn't even look up when she said it. Just kept chewing her gum, typing, flipping through someone else's schedule. And Danielle Reed, heels aching, blazer crisp, portfolio tucked neatly under her arm, just smiled. Polite, calm, the way she was raised. She'd been sitting in that sun-drenched lobby for 45 minutes, watching people walk in and disappear behind glass doors, men with golf tans and bright teeth, women who never glanced her way. Danielle checked her phone again. 10:52 a.m. She had a 10 o'clock with the regional director. Still no one called her name. Still no one offered water. Still she sat, not because she didn't belong there, but because she knew she did. What no one in that building realized yet was that the woman they were ignoring, she was about to change everything. Thank you for being here. Sometimes the smallest moments carry the greatest meaning. Today's story is one of those, quiet, powerful, and worth remembering. If it touches your heart, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell so you won't miss the next one. Now let's take a closer look at what really happened. Danielle Reed, 32 years old, MBA from Chilean, sharp mind, steady hands, and on that morning, sharp heels she already regretted. She had rehearsed for weeks. Mock interviews, elevator pitches, industry data. She even knew the middle name of the man she was about to meet, Gerald Clayton, regional director of Valorix Group, a national logistics company based in Phoenix, Arizona. Danielle arrived 15 minutes early, just like her mother taught her. Early is on time is late. The lobby of Valorix Corporate Plaza gleamed with glass and chrome, lemon-scented air, soft jazz from hidden speakers. A twisting metal sculpture caught the light like a frozen storm. She stepped up to the front desk. A woman barely older than her, chewing gum discreetly, glanced up. "Hi," Danielle said warmly. "Danielle Reed. I have a 10 a.m. meeting with Mr. Clayton." The receptionist blinked, tapped her keyboard, picked up the phone, whispered something into the receiver, then nodded. "He'll be right with you. Please have a seat." Danielle smiled. "Thank you." She walked to the chairs by the window, sat, crossed her legs carefully, balanced the leather portfolio across her lap, and waited 5 minutes. 10:15. Danielle wasn't worried yet. Meetings run late. Important people are busy. She reviewed her notes again. Revenue diversification, fleet integration, behavioral leadership models post-merger. The numbers danced in her head like a second language. She'd prepared for every possible question, every pivot. Her stomach fluttered, but her hands stayed still. She told herself, "You belong here." But by the half-hour mark, something began to change. She stood, smoothed her skirt, walked back to the desk. "Excuse me," she said, still smiling. "Just wanted to check if Mr. Clayton is still available." The receptionist didn't hide her annoyance. "He's wrapping up a call, said he'll be right with you." Same words, different tone, like Danielle was a hallway nuisance. Danielle nodded, returned to her seat, sat up straighter. She began to watch. 2 white men walked in, laughing about a golf game. Button-downs, loafers, Bluetooth earbuds still in their ears. The receptionist was on her feet before they even stopped moving. "Mr. Harris, Mr. Jennings, coffee, water." She handed each a drink, then led them through the glass doors without asking a name, just swept them in. Danielle blinked. Maybe they had meetings, maybe not. But the thought twisted in her gut like cold wire. She told herself, don't jump to conclusions, but the silence around her, the way no one met her eyes, the way she was passed over, it wasn't new, and it wasn't innocent. She tried to stay calm, stay invisible. She kept her posture perfect, her voice even her breaths felt calculated. But an hour in, her back began to ache. Her toes throbbed inside those pointed shoes, and still nothing. She watched as another visitor, another man, was greeted with warmth. Coffee, chatter, access. Danielle's presence wasn't just ignored, it was treated like an inconvenience, like she was furniture, a glitch. Not rude enough to be called offensive, but just cold enough to sting. Across the lobby, a janitor emerged, Older man, gray at the temples, worn sneakers, a cart full of cleaning supplies. Their eyes met for a brief second. No words. Just a nod, human, quiet, an acknowledgement of what both of them already knew. What it's like to be in the room but not really seen. Danielle smiled softly, then looked away. She didn't want anyone to think she was loitering. Or worse, waiting for attention. Even now she was still measuring everything. At 11:15 a.m. a tall woman strode in. Navy pantsuit, straight spine, purposeful steps. Danielle recognized her immediately. Jillian Cross, vice president of strategy. She'd seen her speak once at a logistics summit. Commanding, brilliant, a force. The receptionist snapped to attention. "Miss Cross, can I get you coffee? Water?" Jillian waved her off gently, stepped into the elevator and disappeared. Danielle sat frozen, her hands still but her pulse heavy in her ears. She adjusted her blazer again, crossed her legs, smiled at no one. Look busy. Look important. Look like you matter, because in that lobby, if you weren't already recognized, you might as well not exist. At 11:30 she tried again. This time her voice was firmer. "Hi, I've been here since 9:45. Should I reschedule?" The receptionist looked up, startled, like she'd forgotten Danielle entirely. "Oh, Mr. Clayton's just finishing up a call. He'll be right with you." Same line, same smile, same nothing. Danielle thanked her. Sat down again. This time slower. Her face still composed, but her hands gripped the edges of her portfolio just a little too tight. Inside her chest, something old began to stir. Not just frustration, not just confusion. Something deeper. Fatigue. The kind that builds over years of having to prove yourself twice as hard for half the recognition. She remembered her mother's voice. "You gotta be twice as good, baby girl, just to get half as far." At the time, it sounded like one of those things mothers said. Now it felt like prophecy. She pretended to review her notes again, but she wasn't reading anymore. She was hiding the humiliation, the ache, the quiet anger lodged behind her ribs. Suddenly, she saw movement from behind the desk. A man stepped out. Gerald Clayton, salt and pepper beard, polished shoes, rolled-up sleeves and an expensive watch. He walked right past her, laughing with another manager, clipboard in hand, breezy and confident. His eyes swept across the lobby. They passed over her face. And didn't stop. He didn't wave, didn't nod, didn't even blink. Just disappeared behind another door. Danielle sat back slowly, her pulse like a steady drumbeat in her ears. It wasn't confusion anymore. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. They hadn't forgotten her. They just didn't see her. It started with footsteps. Not one pair. Several, sharp, measured, confident. The kind of sound that turned heads in a corporate building, not because it was loud, but because of what always followed it. The glass doors of the Valorix lobby swung wide, and in walked 5 people, dressed like they didn't just belong. They owned the place. Danielle looked up. She recognized 2 of them instantly. Martin Beasley, CEO of the entire company. And just half a step behind him, Sandra Whitlock, Senior Director of Finance, smart, unshakable, known across the company for being direct, fair, and impossible to impress. Danielle's breath caught. She had seen them on stage before, during the company's leadership summit in Dallas. Not just leaders, architects of the company's future. The receptionist straightened up like she'd been electrocuted. "Good morning, Mr. Beasley." "Miss Whitlock, can I get you?" But Sandra didn't stop. She scanned the room with those sharp, calculating eyes. Then she smiled, not at the desk, not at the walls, at Danielle, and then she spoke. Loud, clear, no room for confusion. "Danielle Reed, I didn't know you were coming in today." Heads turned. Conversation stopped. Even the janitor paused mid-sweep. Danielle stood slowly, smoothing her blazer, her mind suddenly quiet in a way that felt foreign. She didn't move fast, didn't rush, didn't smile too much. She simply walked, chin lifted, eyes steady. Martin Beasley stepped forward and offered his hand. "It's good to see you again, Danielle," he said, warm and genuine. "We were just talking about your work last week. Your presentation at the summit, outstanding." Danielle took his hand, steady as steel. "Thank you, Mr. Beasley, it's an honor." And behind them, Gerald Clayton, the man who had kept her waiting for 2 full hours, had just walked out from the side hallway. His eyes went wide. He looked from Martin to Sandra to Danielle. Then back again. Something flickered across his face. Confusion, embarrassment, then panic. He rushed forward. "Danielle, I apologize for the wait," he blurted. "There was a situation, some scheduling overlap. You know how it is." Danielle turned toward him, her face composed. Nothing cold, nothing loud, just one line, calm, clear. 2 hours is a long time for a scheduling overlap, Mr. Clayton." Gerald froze. Martin's brow lifted. Sandra said nothing, but folded her arms, watching like a judge behind glass. Gerald stumbled over words, something about meetings, calls, timing. But no one was listening, because for the first time all morning, all eyes were on Danielle, and not because of her outfit, not because of her name, but because the truth was finally impossible to ignore. Sandra stepped forward and touched Danielle's arm gently. "If you have time, why don't you come up to the executive floor with us?" she said. "We'd love to pick your brain on a few upcoming projects." Danielle nodded. "I'd be happy to." Gerald tried to insert himself again. "Can I get you anything? Coffee? Or maybe we can talk now." But Danielle didn't even look at him. She turned, graceful, effortless, and walked alongside Sandra and Martin toward the elevator. Behind her, Gerald Clayton stood awkwardly in the middle of the lobby. No clipboard, no swagger, just a man who had made a mistake, and realized too late the whole company had just seen it. Danielle didn't glance back, but she felt it, the heat of his embarrassment chasing her like sunlight on glass. And for the first time that day, she smiled, not smug, not vengeful, just proud. Upstairs, everything was different. The conference room didn't smell like lemon polish or filtered air. It smelled like focus, like decisions being made in real time. And Danielle wasn't just there to listen. She was invited to lead. Martin slid a thick folder across the table. "We're developing a new leadership initiative," he said. "And after seeing what you brought to the summit, we want you involved early." Danielle opened the folder. Timelines, budgets, early-stage plans. This wasn't a courtesy. It was a blueprint, not an interview. A seat at the table. She looked up. Sandra leaned in. "We need more people like you," she said. "People who don't just know the numbers, but know what's missing." Danielle asked a few questions. Sharp ones, pointed suggestions followed, and she noticed everyone listened, not out of politeness, but out of respect. Across the hallway, visible through the glass wall, Gerald Clayton hovered by his office door. He glanced toward the room once, then again, then again. Danielle saw him. She met his eyes. Just for a second. No malice, no smirk, just stillness. Then she turned back to the conversation, because that was where her future lived now. And she wasn't about to look backward for anyone. Gerald Clayton's nameplate disappeared from his office door on a Friday morning. No email, no explanation, just gone. And in the break room, the whispers began. No one said it out loud. Not yet. But they knew. He'd been called into a closed-door meeting with legal and HR the day before. The kind of meeting where no one comes out smiling. His office stayed dark the rest of the afternoon. By Friday, it was empty. And Danielle Reed, she didn't say a word, she didn't gloat, didn't update her status, didn't even change her route through the lobby. She just moved forward. The official offer came the following Monday. Subject line: Leadership Initiative, Regional Appointment Consideration. But the body of the message made it clear. This wasn't a maybe. It was a pipeline, to power, to pay, to permanence. It wasn't just a project. It was a bridge to the role she had earned 10 times over. She read it once, then again, then closed her laptop slowly. And she sat still, not with disbelief, but with a quiet, private knowing. It had taken years. All the silent dismissals, all the emails never replied to, all the meetings where her ideas were repeated louder by someone else. Now here she was, not knocking on a door anymore. She was the one holding the key. Her first big meeting as initiative lead was scheduled for Thursday at 9 a.m. She wore a slate gray skirt and a crisp white blouse. No frills, no bright color, just clarity. She entered the room 5 minutes early. And this time, they were already waiting, department heads, senior managers, 2 new hires, even someone from finance, all seated, all ready. As she connected her laptop to the projection screen, no one asked if she needed help. And that, oddly, felt like a small miracle. She looked out across the table, then clicked to the first slide and said, "Good ideas don't care where they come from, neither should we." The room leaned in, and in that moment she knew. This wasn't about one hallway, one receptionist, one man who didn't see her. This was about every young woman who'd been told to wait quietly until someone noticed. Danielle wasn't just rising. She was reaching back and building something bigger than herself. But power always comes with echoes, and Danielle could feel them. At lunch, a colleague from HR approached her in the courtyard. "Hey," he said quietly. "Just so you know, there were complaints about Clayton before." Danielle paused. He continued. "Yours wasn't the first name left in the lobby. You were just the one they couldn't ignore." She thanked him, smiled. And when he left, she sat on the bench for a long while, because that's when the truth hit her hardest. This wasn't just about her. It never had been. Across the company, small things began to shift. New training guidelines. A rotating internal audit of client meetings and internal interviews. One junior associate, black, soft-spoken, brilliant, was suddenly asked to present in front of the regional board. Danielle watched it all quietly. Not to take credit, but to make sure it didn't stop. Late one evening, weeks after her first meeting, Sandra Whitlock called her. Not emailed, called. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course," Danielle replied. Sandra's voice was calm, but low. "What kept you from walking out that day?" Danielle didn't answer right away. Then slowly she said, "If I had left, it would have looked like I wasn't ready, but I knew it. I just needed the room to realize it too." Sandra was quiet for a second, then said, "That's the kind of answer I want echoed in this company for years." Danielle smiled. "Then we'd better build the kind of place where that's the norm, not the exception." Across the plaza, the sun dipped behind the Phoenix skyline. Glass towers reflected the gold light. Inside the quiet office, Danielle leaned back in her chair and breathed. She wasn't exhausted. She wasn't guarded. She was steady. For the first time in a long time. She felt seen, and not because someone finally noticed, but because she never stopped being visible to herself. The next time Danielle walked through the lobby, no one asked if she was in the right building. They didn't glance past her. They didn't hesitate. The receptionist stood when she saw her, even smiled, an actual human smile, not a grand gesture, not a performance, just recognition. Danielle nodded politely. No extra warmth, no resentment. Because now she understood. This moment wasn't about being welcomed. It was about never needing permission again. A week later, she stood in front of a new class of hires. Orientation, 23 faces, young, eager, nervous. Among them, a girl near the back, dark skin, straightened hair, a folder clutched too tight against her chest. Danielle recognized that look. She had worn it once in a sunlit lobby with glass doors and lemon polish. She smiled at the group, then said, "Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me sooner. You are not here to impress the room. You are here because you belong in it. So sit like you belong, speak like you belong. And if someone forgets that, let your work remind them." That girl near the back smiled, just barely, but Danielle saw it. And in that single moment, something small but unshakable passed between them. Later that evening, she stayed late, reviewing reports in her new office. The sun dipped behind the skyline, casting soft shadows across her desk. A knock at the door. Then Sandra stepped in. No blazer, just her and a coffee mug. "You settling in all right?" she asked. Danielle leaned back, smiling. "Better than all right." Sandra nodded. "Good, because I'm going to need your help on something bigger soon." Danielle tilted her head, curious. Sandra smiled, cryptic. "One step at a time." As Sandra left, Danielle turned back to her desk. She saw her old leather portfolio in the corner, the same one she had gripped so tightly that morning. She reached for it, opened it, and inside was the same resume. Same numbers, same skills. Nothing had changed, except who finally saw it, and more importantly, who she no longer needed to prove it to. Gerald Clayton never returned. His absence was noted, then forgotten. But Danielle, she stayed. She led. She changed rooms quietly, consistently, and without apology. She never told people how long she had waited in that lobby, how her back ached, how her stomach twisted, how invisible she felt. Because that story wasn't about pain anymore. It was about power, and how it moves quietly at first, until the floor shifts, and the room finally learns your name. One Friday afternoon, as she left the building, the janitor she once nodded to passed by again. Same cart, same quiet walk. Their eyes met. He nodded once. This time she stopped. "Thank you," she said softly. He didn't ask why, didn't need to. He just tipped his cap and kept walking. Outside, the Phoenix heat was rising again. But Danielle didn't mind it anymore, because the world hadn't changed around her. She had changed within it, and that was more than enough. Sometimes the people who are overlooked the longest are the ones carrying the strength to lead us forward. Danielle didn't rise because someone opened a door for her. She rose because she stayed ready, even when no one was watching. She waited with dignity, she spoke with clarity, and when the moment came, she didn't ask for permission. She walked in, not just for herself, but for every young woman, every quiet voice, every person who's ever had to wonder if they mattered in a room that refused to see them. And now, because she stayed, the room is finally different. If this story moved you, even just a little, don't let it end here. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, tell us if you've ever been made to wait, and how you found your way through it. And if you'd like more stories like this, quiet, powerful, and full of meaning, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the bell, so you never miss the next one. Thank you again for being here with us.